Great to see you, genius. It is beautiful to have you here with me in my back garden, my front garden. And it is noisy because there's construction over there. We're drilling holes for piles. That's the sound you can hear. So I'm not going to be out here for too long. But I want to show you the flowers because this is the last time you get to see it before I go overseas. And we're going to miss some. But hey, I'm going to show you something else. All you have to do is jump onto patreon.com, God of Me, all one word, and follow me for free there. And you can see where I'm going and what I'm doing. I'm not going to post anything on Facebook. I really want to focus on what I'm doing when I get there. But I will be posting little updates on Patreon. So, without further ado, here's the garden. And my neighbours have this fabulous rose. I daren't walk over there because the Wi-Fi will give out. But anyway, it's a lovely rose. And we have lilies. It is so exciting to have lilies. They look better if I stand here. These ones are more open. They're doing their thing. And don't they look lovely with the blue lobelia in the back and the white roses? This is the rose season. So that's the flower carpet that is fully out. Let me get you a bit closer. I really need to do a bit more weeding in here. I don't know if it'll get done before I go away. But there are the teeny tiny roses, which I enjoy every year. And more roses over here. This is a pretty sight. The iceberg has lost a lot of leaves. That happens. But the flowers are beautiful. Oh, and there, more petals dropped. And look at this one. It's just mad. Yeah, there are aphids, but I'm not spraying. The plants are strong enough to handle that. So, and look, this fuchsia is just growing. It's all lush and beautiful again and making more flowers, which I never cease to enjoy them. And then this rose is just covered in leaves. Still, it's got leaves. It's amazing. Because, you know, the iceberg, the leaves have all fallen off. Look at these. Isn't that fabulous? It's called compassion. It's kind of obvious why. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And there's a nice fresh one. So, yeah, I spent some time, I had a little extra time this morning and I actually came outside and deadheaded some of the cineraria. You can see they're getting old, they're still bright, but they're starting to fade and that's what happens. And I did not get to do these, so you can see what they look like when they're not deadheaded. They're just about done over here, so this will all be empty the next time you see it. And you'll be able to see, look, the fuchsia's starting to flower. And there's that huge fern in the back. And it's still colourful and lovely and there's a big empty gap. So, you know, it's a garden that's always changing. And this is also the last time. Hi, Augusta! Hello in Virginia! This is also the last time you're going to see this lovely Deutzia flowering out here. Because, as you can see if I step back, it's actually coming to the end of its life. A lot of it hasn't sprouted this year. And I knew this was coming. So sometime I will dig it out and replace it with something else. Yeah, because it's quite hard. You know, I prune things and look after, but see how dense and thick it's got in the middle? It's just got woody, and you can see that things are dying off. So it's got something that's wrong at the bottom, and that means it's time for it to leave, and so we can thank it for being so lovely. So next year, it'll be something else in here. And, down through there, you can hear the noise more than see it. But there's construction happening there. So, I'm going to go inside now and tell you what I've been writing today for God of Me. It's been actually quite challenging. What I'm trying to explain is not easy. I was thinking to myself that this is a challenge even for a good thing explainer like me. And I mean it. I'm really good at explaining things, but this is quite hard. Excuse me, I'm just going to hang up my hat here. Right. So, God of Me is this thing that I'm doing to explain how stuff works, really, and particularly how manifestation works and why it's hard to change and become happy if we're used to being sad, or get well if we're used to being sick, all those kinds of things. I was just so frustrated for so long, and I didn't understand why I was so frustrated or even that I was so frustrated. But when I first connected with the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, things started to make sense for the first time in my life, and it was like, oh my God, this is how it works. I see. And then I got some more information. And so I spent a year or so writing about why it's so hard to change. Why is it so difficult? Because I found it really hard when I decided, I have to stop thinking and feeling the way that I have been for the last 45, 50 years. Why is it so hard? And so I spent a year about writing about that, and I understand now that it's really hard because our bodies, these containers that we live in, which are not us, get used to a certain chemical normal. And if your chemical normal happens to be that you're resentful and angry, or you're sad, or you're fearful, or whatever, your body gets used to that. It becomes accustomed to that. It can make you sick, by the way, just as well as it can make you well. You think and feel a certain way, you create your body that certain way, and then if you want to think and feel a different way, your body actually fights that change because there's this thing called homeostasis. And a body is evolutionarily designed to stay in homeostasis, whatever that is. If your homeostasis has become sickness, well then there's going to take some work to change your homeostasis to be that of health. And you can't just do it by eating the right foods and exercising and doing all those practical things, all of which I do, by the way, but that's not enough. You have to know how to change as well, because you can do all the right things with your body, but if you're terrified all day long, then your body is getting this message that it's in danger and it's not going to heal. This is not going to heal if you're stressed all the time. It's not physically possible. The body is either busy defending itself from a threat in the environment, or it's busy healing and getting on and growing and doing stuff. It can't do the two at the same time. So this was a revelation to me, and it took me a few years to figure it out. But as I was figuring it out, I started writing and talking about it, and I've been properly writing about it for God of me, because I realised one day in a moment, and that moment stayed with me for good, that there are so many people around the world that can't access this information, and I want them to have access to it. So there you go. And it has to be simple, it has to be really clear, and I'm a really good thing explainer. So that's brought us back to where I was up to. So I've been labouring to connect the dots since I finished writing that bit about why it's so hard to change, and that took me a year to really unpack in a way that I was felt really worked, and that's done now. Since then I've been writing about the actual fundamental basic structure of matter itself and how that works. And while you might think, what the heck has that got to do with me changing my life and, becoming more abundant if you're really poor, or getting healthier if you are sick, or getting a new job if you don't like the one you have, or whatever. It's like there's more to it than just, I want this and I don't have it, and so I'm going to manifest it, I'm going to think positive, I'm going to do all of that. It's like, I want to understand what it is that I'm actually trying to change. Really. What am I trying to change? If I'm working to change a physical condition in my body, and let's say there's nothing the doctors can do for me, well then what? What are you going to do? Say, they can tell me that I've got this life expectancy and this is going to happen and this is going to happen, and they can tell you that because of all the other people that have had the same thing, and more or less this is what happens. But what if I don't want to accept that? What then? And there are people, lots of people now, and not just recently, but, increasingly, lots of people who are starting to understand that we can, if you like, we can be our own genetic master. We can actually be our own epigenetic master. That's another word I'm not going to talk about today. But the point being that if you want to change the matter of your body, for example, with your mind, you might want to understand what it is that you're actually changing. And so that's why I've been talking about matter. Because I've just got some really, really interesting information about that recently. In the last few months, and it's blown my mind. And I'm well aware that people might think, oh God, this isn't about, imagining what I want in life and switch off, and that's okay. This is something that I'm so fascinated by that I'm just writing about it and talking about it anyway. So, the last thing I did last week was I talked about the 4 states of matter. I talked about the fact that we have, we're all used to solids, liquids, and gases. That's normal. But you also get a thing called a plasma, and that's the 4th state of matter. And that's when you take a gas and you put it under lots of pressure and you make it very hot. And then all the bits that make up the gas actually fall apart, and they end up being little individualized, very highly charged, very energized particles. And this plasma suddenly doesn't behave like anything else. It's different. It behaves like a fluid, and it's conductive of electricity, which is bizarre because we don't think about that. Anyway, that was last week. And so I'm trying to link the dots between, okay, here's matter, and we want to change it with our mind, and you're talking about plasma, and why the hell is this of interest to me? Because we spent a lot of time, up until now, talking about the fact that the matter that we can touch and, all of that. Hi, Christy! Great to see you, sweetie. It's made up fundamentally, it's made of protons and neutrons and electrons and all those things. Most of us are familiar with atoms. But what are they made of? Well, those are made of smaller bits. And it's known, it's understood, but they're made of smaller bits. And we talked about the smaller bits, and we talked about the fact that actually when you really look at the atom, there is 99.9999999, it's mostly space. There's nothing there. And really, when people take pictures of the atom, they don't actually see anything, even in the small place where we say there's something there. What they see is a tendency. What they see is a charge that's spinning. There's something going on, and they know there's a charge. There's like an area of charge that's more dense, and then there's an area of charge that's not. But it does, there is a space where there's charge and a space where there isn't, and the boundary is like, well, that's the charge radius of the thing. Okay, how does that help me? But this is what makes matter up. Because each one of those little thingies, it is all energy, and each one of those little thingies has a positive and a negative, and they attract and they stick together and they make everything that we think of as solid, but all is energy. And it's held together by these electrostatic charges. And I spent some time in the last month or so explaining what electrostatic energy is, because I didn't really know. And I don't want to say, oh, it's electrostatic energy. If I don't know, how the heck are you going to understand it? So anyway, I've been talking about all of that. It's all on YouTube. And even better, it's all on my Patreon. Because you can also, on my Patreon, you can hear me read what I've written. Each week I do a kind of a chapter reading. So that's there. And then there are special things for my patrons. So the point that I'm trying to get to is that we have all this matter, which is really energy, held together by electrostatic charge. And electrostatic charge is pretty strong stuff. And somehow all of that's made up of these little spinning pieces of energy. Really, really tiny. There's a lot of them. But what's in the space? And the point I've been trying to get to, we're talking about, it's like, why am I explaining about the 4 states of matter and talking about plasma, which is the next thing up from gas, is that this stuff that we can touch, and actually the air that I'm in, you can put that in a bottle and put pressure on it. It's an actual thing that you can measure. All of that's made up of these little spinning bits of energy, and it's arranged, it's organised, it's got together and done something. But what I now understand, and this is thanks to the 32 years of physics work, research, and heart, soul, and blood, sweat, and tears that Nassim Haramein has put into his work, is that what we think of as empty space is not empty. It's full of exactly the same stuff, those teeny tiny little spinning units of energy that make up the matter. The only difference is they're not organised. Because you just have a plasma of Planck's. The Planck, as in Max Planck there, the guy was sort of known as the father of quantum physics. He discovered them, long story short. big gap in my knowledge. I can't summarise the history of how he discovered them, although I have vague ideas. But they are little packets of energy, and that's the whole thing. Quantum mechanics, quantum physics, quantum is that quanta, it's a quantity. They're little packets of energy, because what he first observed was that the energy wasn't behaving like a ball rolling down a hill, which is what they thought it would. Rather, it was like a ball rolling down a set of steps. There were these breaks, and there was energy in quantas, and those were just the words that he used. It's what he had to do to explain what he was seeing in the laboratory. So, okay, so this is the structure of matter, but it's also the structure of not matter. It's all the same stuff. And so, okay then, how does it stick together? How does it get to stick together? And what's it got to do with me possibly changing energy with my mind? I mean, I'm getting to a point here, but there are so many stacked concepts that if I don't take the time to explain each one, it becomes pointless and meaningless. It's like saying, oh, it's electrostatic energy that holds them together. Well, what is that? Well, let me say it's the potential energy, electrostatic energy, because I looked this up and I spent several weeks explaining it. Electrostatic energy is the potential energy that's held, waiting to go, like a ball that you wind up your arm, you're about to throw it. That's potential energy there. When you throw it, it's released. It's potential energy of a system. Most of us know what a system is. Of charged particles. I had to explain that. And it's held in the field around those particles. And if you understand that, okay, well, that's electrostatic energy. And lightning's a really good example of electrostatic energy discharging. But a good example of electrostatic energy not discharging is when your clothing sticks to your skin. It's because there's an attractive force between your skin and your clothing, and that's electrostatic. So, okay, see, that's what I have to do. I have to explain. So the point being that we've got a plasma of Plancks, and then we've got Plancks that make up matter because they're organised. How the hell do they get organised? Really? What's organising them? And what's organising them at the scale of the proton, and then at the scale of a planet, and then at the scale of galaxies, and the scale of the universe? How does that work? And how is it also organised? How does it fit together? It's crazy trying to wrap your mind around it, and yet somehow it all works. There are patterns. That's not the question I'm answering today. What I want to talk about, before I completely run out of time, is an experiment that I did. Well, I had an experience when I was at school. I was probably 16, and sixth form science, physics, and there was an experiment. I mean, it wasn't an experiment; it had been done many times before, but well, it was an experiment to us. And so my classmate and I, we had this equipment, and I remember we went outside to do it, probably because, why not? And, this tray of water, not very deep, but decent sized tray. And then these little motors, so there's the motor, and it's got a little arm that comes off the end and goes down like that. And then wires, and a battery. So there's a battery for each motor, and you can make the motor go. And when we hooked up the motor with the wires to the battery, it's like the little thing went like that. So, and we had some water. So you put the tray down, the container, you put the water in the container, and then you put the two motors, one at each end. And they're sitting there, and you've got to make sure that the end of the little finger thingy is in the water. So when you turn on, and so we're following the instructions, and so you turn on one of the motors and hook it up with the battery, cool. And it makes a little, it does that. And you see these concentric circles going out from the place where the little finger is tapping the water. I mean, that's obvious, right? Everybody has seen rain falling down into puddles. You have a raindrop, it goes bing out, in a circle. And most of us, I remember my father teaching me how to skip stones. You do that, it makes a circle because something is touching the water, and then the information, the wave goes out. So that was fine. We understood that. But then the instruction said, okay, turn on the other motor. They have them both going at the same time. So, we do that. And I expected two lots of circles. But that wasn't what we got. What we got was an interference pattern. And we had this worksheet to go through, and, it's like, oh, see, there's some high points and there's some low points. And you have these two sets of circular waves going out from the two little points of origin. And they interact. And where the two peaks of the waves meet, you get a tall bit, and where the two troughs of the waves meet, you get a flat bit, there's a deep bit, and then where they cancel each other out, where there's a peak and a wave and a trough of a wave and they meet, it just ends up being flat. And so you get this very clear interference pattern in this container of water. It was like, oh, that's really cool. And the best thing about it, most interesting thing about it, was that the pattern was standing still. Where you had these waves going out from these two finger thingies, and the pattern was standing still. And it was my first experience of standing waves. Now, the point about this that I'm slowly getting to in the writing, because I can't miss any steps, is that these two things are basically resonators. They are making a wave in the water. There's a resonance. They got to be the same, by the way. If you have one that's going fast and one that's going slow, can't do that. It's like rubbing your tummy and patting your head at the same time. You don't get standing waves. You've got to have things in sync. So they've got to be coherent. They've got to be the same. And if you have two wave sources or two sources of frequency in the same fluid that are the same, then they're going to make standing waves. And it looks like matter. I mean, it looks like it's solid, even though it's a liquid. And the point is, of course, that in our universe, everything is like one of those little motors. Some things are going really, really, really fast, and some things are going really, really slow in terms of how quickly they go up and down. And I've got some really interesting facts that I'll be reading to my free followers about, how long does it take the Milky Way to go around versus how long does it take a proton to go around? All those things are making waves in that huge universe-sized sea of Planck plasma. And when the waves get in sync, it adds up. And it looks like it's standing still. And I know this isn't the whole picture, but the point is that we make waves. And if we make the right kind of waves, I reckon we can change what that Planck plasma does. Because people are doing it, right? So this is my interest. This is what I'm writing about. And there's all kinds of stuff that I'm going to explore because I'm just fascinated. This is my own journey, really. I want to learn this stuff. And I know what the next module will be about, and that's going to be really cool. And it'll be about how to actually understand your own shit when it comes up, because I notice people struggle with that. But I'm not there yet. I want to finish this off because this was an effort for me to get my head around. It really was. But it's completely, the understanding that I now have has completely changed how I feel even about being alive and in this universe. Because I no longer can agree with what I always felt, that I was just this little insignificant person kind of rolling around like a pea on a barrel, and I couldn't do a damn thing about anything except just the little few things that I could do. I have no influence, no power, no control over anything, no connection either, just this little thing like a pea sitting on a barrel waiting for someone to push it off. And I don't feel like that anymore. So I had to work for this to understand this information, and I'm having to work to explain it. But this is why I'm making the effort, because it's made such a vast difference to me to understand that I'm connected to every single little one of those PSUs in the entire universe. And if I'm connected and I have the ability to resonate my frequency, then that means I can send information out to them. And what if they can send information to me? What if there's this great communication going through the whole of everything and I can tap into that? And I do now because I understand that I can. So I'm really, this is practical to me. It's like, okay, if I'm a resonator, can I change matter with my mind? Because I understand how this is actually working, and maybe I can become the thing that changes how these things fit together. So that's my curiosity. But now I'm going to have, I won't be doing this for another 2 weeks now because I'm going on a journey. And if you aren't already, I invite you to click the link in the description go to patreon.com/godofme, follow me for free and see my updates because it's going to be amazing. I don't travel. This is the one thing that I want to do enough to go to the other side of the globe. So I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Lots of love. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.